I could bring the meeting to order, just a couple of opening remarks before we let Chairman Sweet give his remarks, but obviously we're kind of getting going early in the process, thanks to Diane's efforts, which I'm going to thank her for, because I think this will lessen the logjam, potential logjam at the end of the season. So, and obviously that input came from other folks too, so we appreciate that. The second thing is we've lost a couple of people unanticipated, from the budget committee, so we would be looking for other good candidates. And we're not really limited in terms of numbers. I mean, we can have alternates or whatever else, so that's kind of an ongoing process. But if you have anybody out there that you may talk to that has shown some interest or whatever, don't keep it a secret. We would like to obviously talk to them and consider that. So having said that, Skylar, I'll turn it over to you, and then with the agenda.
I want to welcome you to the beginning of the budget season, and mostly I want to thank you for serving. It sometimes seems like a thankless job, but it's important. We, the selectmen, the voters, need your input and recommendations on what to do. So we appreciate the time and effort that you put into it. I think today, although you may want to wait till you have more members, you need to elect a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary. And the rest of the process, the veterans will show the new guys the way. It should be seamless. One of us, selectmen, will probably be here at every meeting. I'm going to leave, but Frank was going to do the heavy lifting today instead. Again, thank you.
Skylar, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any questions from the committee before we get going? Everybody had a good summer, I hope, and not a totally inactive one. Anyway.
Well, usually we appoint the chair and the vice chair at this time, but usually it's Andrew who opens the meeting, and he isn't here right now, so I don't know if you want to go ahead and do that, or if you want to wait for Andrew to come, because I believe he is coming, and Karen is coming. But we do have an agency ready to rock and roll here for the presentation.
We're meeting next Tuesday, 3 Tuesdays in a row now.
3 Tuesdays in a row, 4 to 6, and Steve just mentioned that we have an earlier departure time tonight because this space is being used immediately after our meeting. I do want to, maybe we can introduce ourselves to Dan. Dan is going to be appointed next next Monday, I believe, and so anyhow, Dan, this is Dan Stearns, and welcome.
Thank you.
And Heather, go ahead.
I'm Heather Porter, Littleton resident. I work at Secure Network Services. This is my 3rd year starting on the budget. Well, my 3rd year, so I'm not necessarily a newbie anymore. And I like to take notes. So I nominate myself.
We nominate her for secretary anyways, yeah. And Mike, do you want to?
Mike Stevens, longtime resident, and got talked into this by somebody at the other end of the table.
Michael brings, it's obviously like to have diversity on the committee, and Michael, other than being one of my former hockey players, has been proven to be a very great young man and a police officer and somebody with a sound head on his shoulders, and obviously can look at things from a different perspective than a lot of the rest of us. And obviously we all have our own little unique position that we view Littleton through, which is what adds to it. And we have.
And I'm Ralph Hodgman, Littleton resident. This is my 2nd year. I'm just a retired citizen.
You're also on the school board though too, right now?
Well, no, I'm on the Lakeway Advisory Committee to decide what to do with Lakeway because it's falling down.
Yeah.
So we got to come up with a new plan for the elementary school.
No, it's
And I'm also on the zoning board.
so.
And Ralph is a dedicated meeting attender, so he does his homework, does his legwork, and gets his facts
I'm sure
together.
Lakeway school will come up, you know, with budget and stuff, so it's good that you're on that committee because.
Well, the committee is going to present their recommendations to the school board on November 5th at the Littleton High School cafeteria. So we're going to present the whole program that we think they should go with to the school board. And then the school board will decide what they want to do from there.
What time is that at?
November 5th at 5 o'clock at the high school cafeteria. I think I said right. Cafeteria.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that because that'll obviously be part of this whole discussion going forward because we do take both sides, the town and the school, and try to merge them together into one budget, basically, because it comes out of the same pocket, the person's same pocket. So, and I'm Diane Cummings. I don't know how long I've been on this committee, but I was on the school board prior to that for 14 years. Having 3 children, I became very involved in the school and then ran for school board. And now I'm just very involved in the town side as well. It's been a learning process for me, but I do understand the school and now I'm learning about the town. So,
Yeah, and obviously Diane coming, and then obviously Milt Bratz, who followed so much the same role, and Diane has now to run for selectman. That would like to still be on the horizon.
Don't know.
But you know, it's Littleton has a strong history of citizens who get involved in many different ways, and I think certainly makes us a stronger community for it. Rudy, did you want to make some opening remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure that whatever you say, in regard the new people that are going to be appointed, at budget committee, they're going to be posted on a town internet because. You guys talk about now, I just to get off of the computer and not think it was saying, about you guys and the more people, for, not that I want to be appointed because, it's a waste of my time. But this is what you say, right? Because the people are probably taxpaying little time, maybe they want to get appointed, to be in this committee, in which it will be, it would be nice if everybody knows about it. This thing doesn't be done, under the table as usual. Things are done in town.
Well above board, and I see.
Oh, you're saying to put it out, announcement on the website?
That's right. They should put an announcement on the
There's an
website.
announcement out right now for a committee on the website. You can put one in there. It's helpful to it for the budget committee.
Right now, nothing was written on. That's the first 2 words that we heard about. That you need new people, new members to belong to the budget committee.
Well,
It will be really appreciated, not just for the taxpayer, but also for the community too.
Right. And obviously some of these openings, this is a good time obviously to say thank you. We have, I mentioned Milt Bratz being on the committee, but we've had a long list of very committed people over the years.
Definitely. And many times too, right?
Just recently, obviously George Kirk is retired, if you would, because he's actually going to be moving out of town. Last spring, Carolyn Euro, who sometimes responds to Catherine at dinner time, she says. Carolyn, obviously had other family issues, a grandmother or whatever else, and want to, spend some time. And Michael Copenhagen, who served us very well, is moving on, not because they didn't want to serve, but at a point in their lives where they have other things that they need to do too. So.
Those resignations were known a long time ago. And so each March when the new town officials are elected, the committees are up for reappointment, and that is, I believe that is the time where it's on the website for, if you are interested in becoming a member of whatever committee it is. Whatever. But we recently had 2 resignations. And just as one of yesterday, and then another one because I think it was Mrs. Melanson, who took a position in Vermont, so she had stepped down. So that was the reason why.
No, what I'm trying to say, you guys should try to get, as many people you can in a committee, at least when you make a decision, right? You got different
Perspectives.
perspective,
Yeah.
and that's, and also, like I said, it's gotta be posted on a time. And also, because you're the chairman, probably you should put in the qualification that an individual needed to be on this committee, because it looks like,
But anyways,
you can get a shoemaker, put him over here, and
well,
he's got something
thank
to
you,
say.
thank you, Rudy. We're limited on time, but I do appreciate it, and I'll
It's
ask
no
him.
limit on time, this is very important.
It is very important. I'm just
Okay,
saying,
thank you.
the meeting is shorter tonight because of the room. Andrew, if you want to open the meeting for nominations for,
Oh, yeah, so, right. So officially, we've already called the meeting to order.
To order, yes.
Yeah, okay. Now we'll accept motions for nominations for chairman. Anybody have a nomination?
Mr. Kelly.
We have a nomination, do we have a second for Mr. Kelly?
I'll second.
We have a second. Okay, any discussion?
I will take that away from, because you're not
Oh,
officially
okay.
on the.
I second.
Sorry about that, Dan. That was
Any-
great, though.
Yeah. Any other nominations? All right, I'll close nominations. Any discussion? All right, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of Steve Kelly as chairman? Say
Aye.
None opposed? None opposed? Steve,
I am
you're
opposed.
chairman. I'll hand it over to you.
Well,
I'm opposed.
now we're gonna nominate a vice chair, and I would like to take the pleasure of nominating Diane, who's done a extremely good job filling out a lot of blanks that might otherwise go unfilled. So Diane would be my choice and my
Thank you.
nominee.
I second. I third.
Any other nominations? Any discussion? All those in favor of Diane Cummings serving as vice chairman, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we don't usually get that done that fast.
Yeah, I know. That's quick.
So,
Oh, do we need a secretary?
we do.
Yes, we already had a
I nominate myself.
Secretary, and she's already started. She's on the job.
Please, I would like to nominate Heather Porter, who is, obviously, I've tried to do that job a few times myself in the past, and it takes way more time than what most people realize. But Heather, we thank you for your service, and I would like to nominate you to stay in that position for this coming season.
I second that.
Any other nominations or volunteers? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, Heather, I thank you very much.
So, because Karen isn't here quite yet, we have one agency. Did you want to get started on that, or do you want?
You can go ahead. Yeah, I have what Karen was going to present, but
Okay,
if
that's
you want to
fine.
let the agency go first.
I didn't know,
Yeah,
because
she's
Karen
not feeling well.
she's not feeling well, so.
I sent her home.
Yeah.
Oh, so she is, okay.
Yeah, I thought she may be coming. And
You all we got tonight.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
So we have Michael Counter, he's the president of North Country Home Health and Hospice, and he's here tonight to give us a little information on the warrant article, the petition warrant article that the agency will be placing on the town ballot. And as you know, we do take a vote on these agencies and whether or not we support their request. But I think the process we will hear the different agencies, and in the past, I think towards the end of our whole season, then we kind of go down the warrant articles and vote on the warrant articles. So if you'd like to come up.
Quick question, who are we missing tonight for the vote that's on the committee?
We are missing, let's see, who are we?
Jim?
Jim, yeah, and he
McMahon.
may arrive late.
So Jim McMahon's still
Yeah, so we're
serving.
going to, yeah.
So he's the only
3,
other.
4, 5, 6, and we have 2 that are, I think, on the agenda for appointment next Monday.
So do we have a quorum for tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
We do? Okay.
yes. Yeah.
Just make sure.
We have 5, so we do have a quorum. So, yes. So,
Okay,
would you like to come up and present?
thank you. So we sent in a lot of information. I don't know if you've gotten it, haven't had time to look at it. Or that's later?
No, actually, I think this goes into the town and into Karen, the business administrator. So we haven't seen that,
Okay.
but what you can do is just tell us about the warrant article and why you're requesting whatever you're requesting in that warrant article. And then Karen will probably give us some more information about that when
That's
she's there.
He hasn't already submitted to the town?
He's submitted this information to the town. There is a process now. We're basically following the order of, I think, Grafton County.
Yes,
the
but I
agency.
thought we would have copies of that before they came and talked to us, to at least review it.
Yeah, Karen's got a bottleneck with a late audit. He just got finished with that last week, and we're making arrangements so the audit's nowhere near budget season.
Next time.
Next time, yeah,
So-
it's delayed.
So he's here, so let's go.
So, right, so, thank you very much for the time and the support you've given thus far. Last year was $21,500, and that's what we're asking for this year as well in our request for town support. Sort of level.
If I could bring the meeting to order, just a couple of opening remarks before we let Chairman Sweet give his remarks. But obviously we're kind of getting going early in the process, thanks to Diane's efforts, which I'm going to thank her for, because I think this will lessen the logjam, potential logjam at the end of the season. So, and obviously that input came from other folks too, so we appreciate that. The second thing is we've lost a couple of people unanticipated, from the budget committee, so we would be looking for other good candidates. And we're not really limited in terms of numbers. I mean, we can have alternates or whatever else, so that's kind of an ongoing process. But if you have anybody out there that you may talk to that has shown some interest or whatever, don't keep it a secret. We would like to obviously talk to them and consider that. So having said that, Skylar, I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll get on with the agenda.
I want to welcome you to the beginning of the budget season, and mostly I want to thank you for serving. It sometimes seems like a thankless job, but it's important. We, the selectmen, the voters, need your input and recommendations on what to do. So we appreciate the time and effort that you put into it. I think today, although you may want to wait till you have more members, you need to elect a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary. And the rest of the process, the veterans will show the new guys the way. It should be seamless. One of us, selectmen, will probably be here at every meeting. I'm going to leave, but Frank was going to do the heavy lifting today instead. Again, thank you.
Skylar, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any questions from the committee before we get going? Everybody had a good summer, I hope, and not a totally inactive one. Anyway,
I mean, what,
Well, usually we appoint the chair and the vice chair at this time, but usually it's Andrew who opens the meeting, and he isn't here right now, so I don't know if you want to go ahead and do that, or if you want to wait for Andrew to come, because I believe he is coming, and Karen is coming. But we do have an agency ready to rock and roll here for the presentation.
we're meeting next Tuesday, 3 Tuesdays in a row now.
3 Tuesdays in a row, 4 to 6. And Steve just mentioned that we have an earlier departure time tonight because this space is being used immediately after our meeting. I do want to, maybe we can introduce ourselves to Dan. Dan is going to be appointed next next Monday, I believe. And so anyhow, Dan, this is Dan Stearns, and welcome.
Thank you.
And Heather, go ahead.
I'm Heather Porter, Littleton resident. I work at Secure Network Services. This is my 3rd year starting on the budget. Well, my 3rd year, so I'm not necessarily a newbie anymore. and I like to take notes.
She's
So I nominate
way
myself.
ahead. We nominate her for secretary anyways, yeah. And Mike, do you wanna?
Mike Stevens, longtime resident, and got talked into this by somebody at the other end of the table.
Michael brings, it's obviously like to have diversity on the committee, and Michael, other than being one of my former hockey players, has been proven to be a very great young man and a police officer and somebody with a sound head on his shoulders, and obviously can look at things from a different perspective than a lot of the rest of us, and obviously we all have our own little unique position that we view Littleton through, which is what adds to it. And we have.
And I'm Ralph Hodgman, Littleton resident. This is my second year. I'm just a retired citizen.
We're also on the school board though too, right now.
Well, no, I'm on the Lakeway Advisory Committee to decide what to do with Lakeway because it's falling down.
Yeah.
So we got to come up with a new plan for the elementary school.
No, it's
And I'm also on the zoning board.
And Ralph is a dedicated meeting attender,
Yeah.
so he does his homework, does his legwork, and gets his facts
I'm
together.
sure Lakeway School will come up, with budget and stuff, so it's good that you're on that committee because.
Well, the committee is going to present their recommendations to the school board on November 5th at the Littleton High School cafeteria. So we're going to present the whole program that we think they should go with to the school board. And then the school board will decide what they want to do from there.
What time was that at?
November 5th at 5 o'clock at the high school cafeteria. I think I said right. Cafeteria.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that because that'll obviously be part of this whole discussion going forward because we do take both sides, the town and the school, and try to merge them together into one budget, basically, because it comes out of the same pocket, the person's same pocket. So, and I'm Diane Cummings. I don't know how long I've been on this committee, but I was on the school board prior to that for 14 years. Having 3 children, I became very involved in the school and then ran for school board. And now I'm just very involved in the town side as well. It's been a learning process for me, but I do understand the school and now I'm learning about the town. So
Yeah, and obviously Diane coming, and then obviously Milt Bratz, who followed so much the same role, and Diane has now run for selectman, but that could still be on the horizon.
Don't know.
But it's Littleton has a strong history of citizens who get involved in many different ways, and I think certainly makes us a stronger community for it. Rudy, did you want to make some opening remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure that whatever you say, in regard the new people that are going to be appointed, at budget committee, they're going to be posted on a town internet because you guys talk about now. I just to get off of the computer and not think what it's saying, about you guys and need more people, for not that I want to be appointed because, it's a waste of my time. But this is what you say, right? Because the people are probably taxpayer little town, maybe they want to get appointed, to be in this committee, in which it will be, it would be nice if everybody knows about it. This thing doesn't be done, under the table as usual things are done in town.
Well above board, and I see.
Oh, you're saying to put it out, announcement on the website?
That's right. They should put an announcement on the
There's an
website.
announcement out right now for a committee on the website. You can put one in there, it's sample to it for the budget committee.
Right now, nothing was written on. That's the first words that we heard about. That you need new people, new members to belong to the budget committee.
Well,
It will be really appreciated, not just for the taxpayer, but also for the community too.
Right. And obviously some of these openings, this is a good time, obviously, to say thank you. We have, I mentioned Milt Brass being on the committee, but we've had a long list of very committed people over the years.
Definitely.
And
My name is on it too, right?
Just recently, I mean, obviously George Kirk is retired, if you would, because he's actually going to be moving out of town. Last spring, Carolyn Euro, who sometimes responds to Catherine at dinner time, she says. Carolyn, obviously had other family issues, a grandmother or whatever else, and want to, spend some time. And Michael Copenhagen, who served us very well, is moving on, not because they didn't want to serve, but at a point in their lives where they have other things that they need to do too. So.
Those resignations were known a long time ago. Yeah. And so each March, when the new town officials are elected, the committees are up for reappointment, and that is, I believe that is the time where it's on the website for, if you are interested in becoming a member of whatever committee it is. Whatever. But we recently had 2 resignations. And I mean, just as one of yesterday, and then another one because I think it was Mrs. Melanson who took a position in Vermont, so she had stepped down. So that was the reason why.
Yeah.
No, what I'm trying to say, you guys should try to get, as many people you can in a committee, at least when you make a decision, right? You got different
perspective,
and that's and also, like I said, it's gotta be posted on a time. And also, because you're the chairman, probably you should put in the qualification that an individual needed to be on this committee, because it looks like
but anyways,
you can get a shoemaker, put him over here. And,
well, thank you, Rudy. We're limited on time, but I do appreciate it. And I'll ask
it's not limited on time. This is very important.
It is very important. I'm just saying
Thank
the meeting is shorter tonight because of the room. Andrew, if you want to open the meeting for nominations for.
Oh yeah. So officially, we've already called the meeting to order. Yeah. Okay. Now we'll accept motions for a nomination for chairman. Anybody have a nomination?
Mr. Hill.
We have a nomination. Do we have a second for Mr. Kelly?
I'll second.
We have a second. Okay. Any discussion?
I will take that away from, because you're not officially on the. Sorry about that, Dan. That was great, though.
Any other nominations? All right, I'll close nominations. Any discussion? All right, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of Steve Kelly as chairman? Say
Aye.
None opposed? None opposed? Steve?
I am
you're
opposed.
chairman. I'll hand it over to you.
I'm opposed.
Now we're going to nominate a vice chair, and I would like to take the pleasure of nominating Diane, who's done an extremely good job filling in on a lot of blanks that might otherwise go unfilled. So Diane would be my choice and my nominee.
I second. My third.
Okay. Any other nominations? Any discussion? All those in favor of Diane Cummings serving as vice chairman, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we don't usually get that done that fast.
Yeah, they know.
So,
What do we need a secretary?
we do.
Yes, we already had a volunteer.
Nominate myself.
Sorry, and she's already started. She's on the job.
Please, I would like to nominate Heather Porter, who is, I've tried to do that job a few times myself in the past, and it takes way more time than what most people realize. But Heather, we thank you for your service, and I would like to nominate you to stay in that position for this coming season.
I second that.
Okay. Any other nominations or volunteers? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Heather, I thank you very much.
So, because Karen isn't here quite yet, we have one agency. Did you want to get started on that, or do you want?
You can go ahead. Yeah, I have what Karen was going to present. But
Okay,
if
that's
you want
fine.
to let the agency go first.
I didn't know,
Yeah,
because
she's not feeling well.
she's not feeling well, so.
I sent her home.
Oh, so she is, okay.
Yeah, I thought she may be coming. And
You're all we got today.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
So we have Michael Counter, he's the president of North Country Home Health and Hospice, and he's here tonight to give us a little information on the warrant article, the petition warrant article that the agency will be placing on the town ballot. And as you know, we do take a vote on these agencies and whether or not we support their request. But I think the process we will hear the different agencies, and in the past, I think towards the end of our whole season, then we kind of go down the warrant articles and vote on the warrant articles. So if you'd like to come up.
Who are we missing tonight from the board that's on the committee?
We are missing, let's see, who are
Jim?
Jim, yeah, and he
McMahon.
may arrive late.
So Jim McMahon's still
Yeah, so we're
serving.
going to, yeah,
So he's the only
3,
other.
4, 5, 6, and we have 2 that are, I think, on the agenda for appointment next Monday.
So do we have a quorum for tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
We do? Okay.
yes.
Just make sure.
We have 5, so we do have a quorum. So, yes. So,
Okay,
would you like to come up and present?
thank you. So we sent in a lot of information. I don't know if you've gotten it, and had time to look at it. Or that's later.
No, actually, I think this goes into the town and into Karen, the business administrator. So we haven't seen that,
Okay.
but what you can do is just tell us about the warrant article and why you're requesting whatever you're requesting in that warrant article. And then Karen will probably give us some more information about that when
Another
she's
point.
there.
He hasn't already submitted to the town?
He's submitted this information to the town. There is a process now. We're basically following the order of, I think, Grafton County.
Yes,
the
but I
agency.
thought we would have copies of that before they came and talked to us, to at least review it.
Yeah, Karen's got a bottleneck with a late audit. He just got finished with that last week, and we're making arrangements so the audit's nowhere near budget season.
Next time.
Next time, yeah.
So-
It's delayed.
So he's here, so let's go.
So, right, so thank you very much for the time and the support you've given thus far. Last year was $21,005, and that's what we're asking for this year as well in our request for town support, sort of level funding. I was glad to see the Grafton County process. It's a nice form. It sort of lays out, our budget, our administrative costs, and then the program we're asking support for, which is our long-term care program. And just by way of a little background, North Country Home Health and Hospice has essentially 3 main programs: home care, hospice, and long-term care. Okay, and home care is a program where generally skilled need, nursing or physical therapy, speech therapy, home health aides there. We're trying to get a patient better. They come in ill, maybe after a hip or knee replacement or surgery with wounds and etc., chronic diseases. Our goal is to get them better over a period of time, generally within 60 days. Our primary payer is Medicare. They give us 60 days to do that. Hospice, for those who aren't familiar with hospice, is we're helping patients end their life in a pain-free manner, supporting them and their families along the way. And hopefully achieving the goals that they want to achieve before they die. So very different, care models there. And then long-term care is really support for elderly, some of the poor residents of the community to stay at home and out of the nursing homes. So it's not skilled care, it's generally just supportive care around personal care, getting dressed and bathed, and home care, dishes and vacuuming to getting groceries. The state pays us Medicaid and a program called BEAS, program Title 20 and Title 3B. Under New Hampshire Medicaid, it's a Medicaid type program, it's called a Granto. That's the funding source. Barely covers direct costs, barely. And so we generally take a rather large loss on that, but we think it's a very important program for the communities. Again, it keeps those residents at home and out of the nursing homes. and supports them, and to some extent their families. Family's supposed to be involved with that. So, we've had a tough couple of years. I think we described that in our last submission. We combined with a home health agency in Lancaster. It's called Northwoods in 2017. Both of them not financially sustainable, either one of them. We combined them, joined North Country Healthcare System as an affiliate along the way. This was all in 2017. You'll see our financial statements look pretty bleak for 2017. I think the financial statements show a $500,000 loss. A $500,000 loss in 2016. We're anticipating a profit this year. And into our budget year as well, a sustainable profit of 2% margin. So we turned the corner. A lot of management changes came along the way, and other changes that we had to make. We had to look at our cost structure, which was kind of out of control as well. And so even with all that change, and we reduced our overhead considerably, so these programs don't cover the kind of overhead they used to. I'm going to say we're about a 38% overhead rate, which is the national standard for our business. So the long-term care program has a lot of overhead. You'll see that in the budget, that the Grafton County model, which I think is great for that. We'll say here's the program and here's the allocation overhead. We lose about $200,000 a year on that, and that's just the way it's going to be. It's not going to pay enough. So we look for contributions. Town support to help keep that program alive. Again, keeping those residents in their homes and presumably paying taxes, property taxes, which is good for the town and their rents if they live in apartments. So I think it's a good investment for the town and for the towns. And we approach about 50 towns in our territory to help support long-term care. So the total of that brings us close to break even, on long-term care. But again, we think it's an important and vital program for our community. So that's what you'll see in the paperwork when you get it. I don't know if you have any questions of me now, maybe from the past work we've done together. Or
The 50 towns from Pittsburgh south to
that fund us.
right down to where?
So we go as far south as Haverhill,
Yeah.
and then we go over to Twin Mountain. We don't go below the Notches,
Okay.
and then all of Coas County.
Okay, so it's kind of diagonally
Yeah,
across the state,
so
right?
yeah.
Plymouth isn't part of the deal. Conway isn't part of the
No.
deal.
No. We go to Lincoln. We have some patients in Lincoln.
There's a little bit south of that.
Small
Yes.
volume down there.
Yeah.
So in Grafton County, Littleton by far, probably 65% of the Littleton and environs. Coas County, Berlin, and Lancaster, the two big towns there. And we go, all the way to Colebrook and Pittsburgh.
Congratulations on turning things around this year. That's
Yeah.
a much different financial
Wow.
picture from the last 2 years.
A lot of change.
Yeah.
A lot of change. But again, it was reasons, so when I took over in January 2017, I just looked, there's these losses. What are the top 5 reasons for these losses? And, we focused on hospice generally brings in a decent margin, believe it or not. Medicare pays, above direct costs. And then, so hospice was almost non-existent. Nobody was focusing on that program. End-of-life care is different. Nurses are wanting to get people better.
Yeah.
Right? And some nurses just have a struggle, believe it or not, with hospice. So we focused on training nurses, and we have certified nurses in hospice and palliative care today. And so we have a much broader group and more well-trained group of nurses. Doctors, they don't want to send people to hospice. They don't want to talk about hospice. They want to talk about getting people better. Right? And so we've done a lot of education with the providers and weeks in Lancaster, Littleton Hospital, and Upper Connecticut Valley Hospital, and the rural health clinics also that are in our area. And so we've seen referrals go from, I'm going to say 100 a year, go to 300 referrals this year for hospice. So, and it's a wonderful benefit, and it was almost unknown in our territory. There's one statistic I like to point to. So Medicare tracks, deaths. Where do people die in hospital hospice, or other. And in the United States, it's like 51% on hospice. In our service territory, if they do it by county, it's 25%. So half of the national average. And why is that? So we started identifying those reasons. So we've grown hospice, that was very important. I think any business person here will understand that overhead gets out of control pretty easily, and that's what happened there. There was just tons and tons of overhead. And so we had to make some cuts, some staffing cuts, but mostly just infrastructure cuts and reductions. We're using our system a lot more. So, for example, our billing is done out of the hospital, Littleton Hospital now. And we use occupational therapy out of Weeks Hospital. They had some slack, they had some people that had not enough work. We needed some people over here, so we started sharing, just talking to each other, just sharing resources. And the other piece was management. There's a lot of people running the business that don't understand business. They weren't trained, in business, and kind of all from the heart, which I think is great. But there had to be a little more business perspective on North Country Home Health and Hospice. So we made some shifts there. Some clinicians are back in the field, which they wanted to do anyway. They want to take care of patients. They threw them in a field manager role. And so we kind of made some adjustments there, a couple of stronger managers. So I think those are the top three things that made a big difference for us. And then we just watch our costs, and we can't do that today. And believe it or not, the employees, very few adjustments in the field staff other than to train them better. And we keep the people near where they live. So we have a Berlin team, we have a Littleton team, we have a Lancaster team. We're not pulling people all over the place to do visits. We want the people that understand their neighbors and in the community to work in their community. So we're fortunate there. Those are just some of the reasons we'll be able to stop the losses.
What was the secret to being able to weather the storm for 2 years?
I think we couldn't have done it without the affiliation with North Country Healthcare. They're able to support us financially. Some of it is direct, contributions, some in loans. You'll see that on the financial statements. They'll say notes payable to affiliates. And so we're going to have to pay some of that back over 7 years. So, but we're making the dollars to do it right now. About 2% margin our budget. That's our goal. That's the hospital's goal as well. So the system goal.
It's a pretty tight bottom line.
It's tight. And again, taking the long-term care out would be different, but we think it's an important program for the community. It's very important for the individuals, of course. And just, I think the support that any support town can give to help with that, I think it would be a good investment in the community.
Very good.
My neighbors had any personal contact with hospice is found to be a very rewarding experience, and so that we're targeting moving toward that 51% figure or even higher, I guess.
That was as of 2015, so I think when they do that again, I haven't seen 2016 numbers. The work we're doing today will be over 30%. And it's growing. So you'll see some advertisements in the paper for our hospice team pretty soon. I think they're going to start next week. Just let people know we're here and we have a hospice program, and we'll at the right time, we'd be happy to talk to you about what hospice is.
And is there more than one hospice program, or is your program B program?
Our program's G program?
B program, okay. We don't have rival hospice programs.
Not here, no.
It's a large area too, a vast area of the state, and very rural, so we appreciate that service. We need that service.
How do you determine how much you ask each town for? You're asking for 21.5 from Littleton. How do you come up with that number?
Some of it's just level funding from, before my time. We're looking at the number of patients in long-term care times a dollar amount.
And how many Littleton residents are in that care?
About 40.
40?
40 on long-term care.
How many total residents in Littleton are being affected by that 21.5?
About 150 total on all our programs.
Okay, 150 Littleton residents.
Yeah.
So similar to how, Ralph was asked about home health hospice and, are there communities that are contributing? So in the same way, there's potentially communities that are within our consortium and covered by the television that aren't contributing, out because they don't collect anything. Or Sugar Hill, I think, for example, I think they collect 1%, or, I don't know, Franconia, Sugar Hill, Bethlehem, I believe Lisbon was a part of it, Whitefield, I can't remember all the different names, but, so what I've talked to them about is coming up with some sort of an equitable way to look at it, so that, they're not just getting the entire 3% and then, having that available for all the other communities to use from Littleton, so.
So, well, that, stay tuned, right?
Yeah, stay tuned, yeah. So, on that, you can see that we're 70%, and then if we go down to library, 75%, Parks and Rec, for expenditures. There's a delay there. You'll see we do have one of our larger programs still coming up, which is basketball, youth basketball, so that will really quickly catch up to the 100% there since the beginning of the year. And you can see the matching special detail outside matches the overage there in the revenues. So overall, we should be at 70%. We're about 70.95% total. If you flip over to the next page is what we are working on for health insurance rates and what changes we're going to see through the union and that we're proposing through the non-union increases. There's some complicated formulas in there, but we are looking at a small increase in health insurance costs, and we're looking at using our formula with employees to help offset those costs. You'll see that in here. We'll go over that more, or you can take time to go over that more and see if
So are you in negotiations right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in negotiations right now with SEA and ASME, and we're also, with non-union, there's no negotiations, but we're trying to be as equitable as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Henry, just to back up though, and this will give to us in the mouth here, but okay, so how is it that our rates with the state retirement system are going down slightly?
That's because of the how the fund is behaving. The fund is doing well.
Because of the stock market.
The stock market's doing well.
Yeah.
Maybe you got the Trump help, I don't know.
Well, maybe yes, other than obviously, you worry about it not sustaining itself. But also, when we, on the school side, are they not experiencing an increase, I thought, in retirement? I thought when we met with them.
Yeah, I think they are, but
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, I think they're in the 11% range, but I thought it was actually going up a bit, and I guess I'm just wondering why.
And they could, I'm not sure how the fund is entirely managed. It could be a completely separate section for teachers, and maybe teachers are experiencing a higher level of retirements. I mean, it's all speculation, I guess, for me, but.
Because I mean, obviously they've been talking for years that, that
I think it is separate.
our state was one of the ones that was underwater, if you would, and for several years, Karen has said, they've been fixing it or adjusting it in 2-year segments, and for the last 10 years anyway, it's gone up, a fairly significant amount every year. So I guess it's nice to think it's going down. I guess I'm hoping that it's not just wishful thinking, that the numbers are really well supported and it just doesn't end up resulting in a large increase.
Yeah, next time, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, so this is the July 2019 through July 20th, 21.
Yeah. I also have on here just fund balances, and you can take a look and see, pretty much for 2017, we just finished the audit, so the numbers are fresh. We really only added about 38,000 and change into the reserve, general reserve fund. So it's a pretty tight year, 2017, which means good budgeting on your part. So. And then you can take a look in the sewer reserve fund. You'll see that's growing. We do have some major projects coming up, and including our centrifuge just broke. And actually, the select board hopefully going to have some options for them at their meeting on Monday as how to deal with that. That piece of equipment I think was about $500,000 16 years ago. It had a 10-year life expectancy, so we got 6 extra years out of it. But we're looking at some alternative options that could hopefully have a quick payoff. So You know, we also have so we have the sub 5 sewer project, which a majority of the debt that's not grant funds will be coming out of the sewer fund and sewer users. And then also we have the sub 2 project, which is paired up with Main Street Phase 2, which will be presented in a warrant article this year, and would also be using some of those funds.
So, for me to understand this, in simple terms, please. So, the monies that go into these general fund and fund balances here basically are the unexpended funds from last year's budget that ended December
2017.
2017.
That's correct.
Okay, 2017. And what was the total amount that you had for that?
So our amount as of the end of 2016 was $511,579. Excuse me. And the amount in 2017, the total, so this is in
right
addition
here.
to, yeah,
Okay.
is $550,000.
Okay.
So, remember we had and we'll have a discussion again once the tax rate period starts. That is, you know, what's the healthy amount to have in a unreserved fund balance? The DRA I think recommends up to, I think it might be something as high as 15% or something.
And then the question was, does Ron Bolton pursue that with him, you know, and did finally get an answer, you know,
Why?
a percent of what figure?
Oh, right.
Right, I mean, which you mean, but the 550 or so, I mean, that's what Karen has mentioned in the past, is being a good working number for cash flow.
Yep.
And obviously, the history of Littleton, we haven't, you know,
Yeah, correct.
we haven't had any catastrophic type things. I mean, we tend to maintain things pretty well, and so it's not like that we have something looming out there that's gonna.
Yeah, and we've done it, I think, well with, we have a good credit rating, we have a good relationship with the banks. In fact, sometimes we even get better rates with the banks than we do with these federally subsidized programs like USDA or, you know, CWSRF. And like this year, we didn't take a tax anticipation note. We're able to use the CAT, basically do IOUs to the sewer fund, and use cash out of the sewer fund, and then while we're waiting for the tax revenues to come in, which has been useful too. So.
Well, I think my point that I was trying to make to myself, I guess, to understand, was that basically we only had $39,000, $38,000 on unexpended, on what was the total budget for that year?
I can tell you, the total budget for 2018 was $9,170,816.
Where is, oh,
And
that's
that's,
on
and then I mean, if you add in the debt service, then we're at, wait, that is with debt service, yeah, total expenses, 9.17 million.
So I always make comparisons between the town side and the school side. So I guess I'm just kind of throwing that out there for everyone to kind of recognize as well. So anyways.
Yeah, I know what the percentage would be.
Yeah.
Ralph, math real quick.
I mean, it doesn't matter what the percentage is, but I mean,
small.
it's
tight,
small,
yeah.
it's tight.
Yeah.
So very well managed. So appreciate that.
So should we thank you, or can Karen go send her a note?
She bears the brunt of the thanks, but it's a team effort, and I couldn't take credit. The department heads are well trained to take care of their own.
And the select board, because they
Yeah,
have to
select board
manage,
too.
yeah, they have to manage their budget.
Absolutely. Yeah, the selectmen keep a tight eye on us and bring the ruler when needed, so.
You went to Catholic school, did you?
Will any of that unreserved fund be used to offset the tax rate?
So that discussion is going to happen with the select board. I'm sure the budget committee could take a look and see what you think. One of the discussions that I was referring to earlier is the Department of Revenue Administration. They oversee, you know, everything we do, and they have a recommended balance that we should carry. And we are, I think 5% is low, but I think we've been comfortable at 2%. And this is about 2%.
Right.
So, that, you know, the select board could choose to do so. If you figure $100,000 equals 14 cents, approximately. That'll change after the reval is complete. We'll know, but, so if you were to send all of it away, you know, you've got
When is the tax rate being?
pretty soon. So we have all the reval numbers are in. We just finished the MS1, I believe, yesterday. And that's where all the valuations are reported, minus any current use or credits or exemptions. So I would think that we should have that signed by maybe the end of the week. And then after that, the DRA has to review and approve it. Maybe, I don't know when we usually get, when do we usually do that? Mid-November?
I think we're supposed to actually by the end of October. I believe.
Yeah.
But yes, we tend to.
We had an extension.
Last year we had an extension, I think, yeah, and definitely on that.
Yeah, soon, as soon as possible.
But is there a town meeting that finalizes that number, or
The select board,
selectmen's meeting?
the selectmen will meet and determine use of fund balance. And I would say
And that will be
they'd
a
entertain
selectmen
you know, any thoughts that this group has too. So
Okay, will that be at any selectmen's meeting, or will they be doing a work?
They might
session?
do a work session for timeliness. But that will be posted and
Maybe it's open to the public.
Yeah, the one thing about, you know, for sure, the state would always like the figure to be higher. Because they have no skin in the game per se, and, you know, the more we have, the less is the likelihood we'd ever have to turn to them for assistance, so that's what it is. But that 500 to 550 figure has been a working number for several years now, and it's not just, it now has really become more of an issue of cash flow for the year than in terms of us having money for some unexpected catastrophe. It's been more just, you know.
I think the other point, though, that I'm trying to make, that it's built very slowly. I mean, if we only had $38,000 difference, unexpended fund balance, it's not really, if you take 50,000 out of it to offset, you know, taxes, you're going backwards, because it's so slow in building. Budgets are so tight, and, you know, so you don't want to necessarily take too much out of it, or maybe none at all for a couple of years to get it pretty steady. So that's my point. 38,000 doesn't build it up very quickly. Doesn't replace what we take out very quickly.
and with
But we've been comfortable for the last couple of years around 511, 550. Now we're looking at 550, so that's a few thousand more than we had over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I also have to say, you know, how much would that lower? I mean, where is that extra 38,000 do us better? I mean, does it really take that much off of each one of our tax bills, or does it give us enough cushion to move forward? I think that has to be part of the discussion too. Where would that $38,000 serve us better?
one other just consideration, and maybe it plays a little bit, would be also just the cost of debt. So, you know, we're coming off of a period where it was pretty stagnant as far as debt. We could do a tax anticipation note and the interest rate would be extremely low. But we're seeing that interest rates are rising, and so the cost of money is would also, you know, impact during between tax billings. So.
When is that dam one coming off? The debt, when's the dam come off the debt?
The finance of the payback?
Yeah.
Is it 2020 or 2021?
Yeah.
I believe.
Oh, is that far out?
Yeah, and that's a.
There was
that's
a
pretty
10
significant
years,
stuff.
right?
Yeah, 450 grand a year, I believe, is that was out. So. It's significant.
Well, thank you, Andrew. So we do have one more piece of business before us. Do you have anything else for us? We do have the Partridge Lake Association here to present. There's going to be a warrant article on the ballot this coming year, so they're going to explain it.
You gentlemen come up here and
Yeah, do you need the...
Do you guys need a projector?
No, we'll print it out.
All right,
Oh,
good.
good. Thank you. Introduce
Steve
yourself.
Kelly?
where's you going?
Yeah.
John Schultz.
Nice to meet you, John.
And I'm Diane
Yeah,
Cummings.
Tom
Nice
Morrison,
to meet you.
hello.
Nice to meet you. And
You know, Andrew.
Hello, how are you? Hello.
So I'm John Schultz, this is Tom Norris. We are here representing the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association. And the Property Owners Association exists for one purpose only, and that is to keep the water in Partridge Lake clean, possibly, or to monitor and enhance the water in Partridge Lake.
you know what? I see where the camera's pointing. Why don't you sit right here so the viewers at home can really hear you? Okay?
Is it all right if we do things on a first name basis?
Oh, yes, please do.
So, as Diane said, our purpose in coming here today is to ask for your support, approval, and support for a warrant article in order to get some funding from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And the principal, fortunately, is 100% forgiven. So, and the Partridge Lake Association will pay any interest on that loan. So there will be no tax impact on the town, on the voters, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
Right.
it's exciting that way.
So we'll just kind of go through this very quickly, if you will. The watershed is 896 acres. The problem in Partridge Lake is algal bloom, and I just learned that algae is the noun and algal is the adjective, so it's an algal bloom, not an algae bloom. So the algal bloom is a rapid increase in population of algae in an aquatic system, and you know, it turns out that's what's been going on in Partridge Lake for really quite a long time, and kind of thought it was cured, I guess. Tom's been a property owner for about 8 years, and I have for about 6 years, and so this really, a lot of this occurred before we came here. By the way, we came to Littleton because we were looking for a place to retire in New England, and when we got here and found Partridge Lake in Littleton, we fell in love. So we're permanent residents. We're not, you know, folks that just come for the weekend kind of thing.
And just, you came from where, John, just out of curiosity?
I came from 25 years in New Jersey. I owned a construction company that did work in hospitals and for medical reasons. And Tom was an executive with Chevron Oil, and he lived all over the world.
Welcome.
Thanks. So there are excess nutrients, and the nutrients are phosphorus and nitrogen, but particularly phosphorus is a problem, and it comes from overland runoff, seepage, precipitation, and Tom has a lot of data, a lot of statistics about, you know, what comes from where. The biggest source on the slide that says internal phosphorus source sediment, the bottom of the lake has a lot of phosphorus or phosphate in the sediment, and every once in a while that gets released by an overturning of the water. There's 3 different layers of water in the lake, and the bottom layer is called the hypolimnion, and all of a sudden, you know, that water comes to the top, and then the algae has something, a nutrient to help it grow.
You know, at one time they said there was, at different points in the year, there could be as many as like 25 different tributaries, if you would, small of them obviously, but you know, bringing water into the lake, and a lot of it had to do with the phosphorus. Apparently, had to do with old agricultural uses of land within the watershed that concentrated in that area due to the runoff.
Yeah, and that situation is improving. You know, there's really not much in the way of agriculture in the watershed, if any anymore. We have a little reference in here to property acquisition in the watershed. Jerry Eames, Dave Ernsberger, Megan Carmen, who's a doctor here, they've all purchased property in the watershed, and now there's no potential for agriculture to happen in those, you know, properties that they own, and maybe more of that could happen in the future. The overland runoff is a source. The seepage, which is basically septic effluent, you know, even properly functioning septic systems put phosphorus into the aquifer and then into the lake.
Because it's such a sand-based system in that area.
And the ledge is so high, the rock is so high that, you know, the water, it just doesn't have a chance to really percolate down very far before it can make its way into the lake.
So it goes down through the sand, hits the ledge, and then runs.
Yeah. You're from Florida originally, right?
Yep.
And you know all about what's going on down there too.
Oh, yeah, with Okeechobee.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and the Blue and Gulf.
And it's all over the United States, it's all over the world.
This is not to get too far.
No.
Right. Yeah. Only Okeechobee's thing is what, like a few $1 billion? That pre-treatment.
Yeah, and I understand that Lake Champlain is having a problem, and so the state of New York, the state of Vermont, and the federal government are all kind of trying to figure out whose responsibility it is, and they're talking about $2 billion to try to fix that problem.
Yeah, they have a new permitting process in Vermont where even municipalities have to get a permit to even do road work, so that the process can be reviewed and there's no excess runoff.
So Steve referenced the tributaries. We have this one slide here that shows the tributaries, the primary ones. There are 3 that run year round, and then there are these other ones that are seasonal. And the 3 year-round tributaries contribute 79% of the total water volume from all of them.
And so, just to add to that, 62% of all the water, according to the studies that we've had done in the past, about 62% of all of the water that comes into the lake comes from overland flow through tributaries. Okay, and 80% of that comes from 3 tributaries. Okay, so those are the ones that we're wanting to look at, study a little bit more, so that we can maybe do some mitigation on those tributaries to keep excess nutrients from getting into the lake.
Number 1 is by Warden, right there where Old Partridge Lake Road and Partridge Lake Road come together. 10 is by between Eames and Parker's property, and 6 is by Scott Manning's place on the other.
So 1, 10, and 6 is
Those are the 3 that, that we're looking to do something about.
We're hoping that these best management practices, as they talk about them, will be able to focus on those. It's rather challenging. You know, we met with the folks from DES a couple of times, and apparently, in order to put an aqua filter or some kind of device in there which can filter out the nutrients, you have to get a permit from the EPA. And the folks from DES are a bit skeptical about the EPA granting those permits. So it seems you know, like one agency, you know, they're giving us, they would provide the money, but then they don't want to provide the approval. I don't know.
Because that would be a mechanical solution. So
Right, that's right.
You actually could.
We're not sure that, yeah, maybe we should back up and Tom, maybe you want to talk a little bit about what was done with the 2001 study, and then 2008 we got a plan, so to speak.
So, you know, the people on the lake for a long time, like going on back to the late 80s perhaps, have been concerned about the water quality, because there have been algae blooms throughout the long history. So they started monitoring the lake back in the late 80s, and just kept, you know, getting good records for what the phosphate levels were, what the nitrogen levels were, dissolved oxygen, a bunch of parameters that people need to know that their water is healthy or not. And that went on for about up till about 2000. And in 2000, I guess the state had some money, and they said, hey, you know, why don't we do a diagnostic study in the lake and see what we can find out? Because we knew what the numbers were, but we didn't really know, you know, what to do about it. So this study here, this big thick book here, was a result of a 2000 study that the DES came in and helped the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association do. And they identified a lot of areas where historic phosphate was in the lake, measured all the tributaries coming in. That's how we know how much water comes in from each different tributary. So they got a lot of good data that we could use to maybe do some future planning. And that wasn't actually, although that work was done in 2000, the report is May of 2007. So the final report, the draft reports before that, so people kind of knew what needed to be done. And then in about 2007, late 2007, 2008, we hired a firm to come in, and they were named as, I forget.
Gomez and Sullivan.
Gomez and Sullivan was a consulting engineer, one of the engineering firms that were on the DES's list of folks that could do this kind of work. They came in and did a study.
I guess the DES actually hired them, right?
I don't know.
Not even Dayton Gowdy seems to know.
But at any rate, we have another study, which I don't have with me, but that's called
It's-
the watershed-based plan.
It's in my bag.
And that's another, you know, 150 pages of data. And that basically took this study and said, okay, we've got these different sources of nutrient, and here's what some of the things that you can do. These are best management practices that you should implement to mitigate and reduce the amount of phosphate coming into your lake, so that eventually we would like to treat the lake itself, because the real problem is in the bottom of the lake. But until we stop or at least reduce as much as possible the phosphate coming into the lake, we really won't be able to get any funds to do anything to treat the bottom of the lake. So that's where we are right now. We're trying to do those mitigations on the sources of water. We've done quite a bit of stuff. The next slide shows what we've done so far. So all of the people on the lake are really up to speed on you know, lake quality, and we talk about it all the time. And we have a fund for if someone wants to put in a new septic system, we can pay for some of the engineering for that. We can have some funds available if somebody wants to put in, let's say, a chemical or a incinerating toilet to keep, you know, to keep that type of stuff out of the lake. We have some funds for that. But we don't have the kind of money it would take to do some of these things. So we need to go to the DS and get that money, or some other source. We have, as a result of that 2008 study, and in conjunction with the city of Littleton, we did a lot of work in the ditches and the kind of the runoff type stuff around, like putting in some riprap and things to keep the sand and whatnot from coming in, because even that contains phosphate. We don't want it in the lake. So those are some best management practices we have implemented. Every year, the city comes out and helps us sweep up all the winter debris off the road, the salt and sand and all that, and get rid of that. We have this annual residents cleanup day where everybody comes out and brooms and rakes and shovels and cleans up all around the lake as much as we can. But that's really, you know, kind of the limit of what we can do as a lake association. So recently, because last year we had a really, really severe algae bloom, that reinvigorated this lake water quality committee. Because we were kind of you know, we haven't seen any problems, things looking good, so let's not worry about it. But last year we had a really severe bloom, and that got everybody's attention again. So now we said, okay, we've done this, let's revisit this watershed-based plan, and what do we need to do next? And the next thing we need to do, according to that plan, is to do some control on these tributaries. So that's what we're trying to do. And we've met with a whole bunch of people, what does it say, 21 meetings here or something like that, and since June, trying to get that done. The good news is that in this 2008 watershed-based plan, the phosphate level in the top layer of the lake was 12 micrograms per year. And they said that our goal, or maybe it was 13, I don't remember, but our goal for a 10-year plan was to reduce that to 11 parts per million. And as of last year, we have actually reduced the 10-year average of that to 8.4 parts per million. So we've far exceeded what, you know, they said we should do. But still we have this pretty severe bloom. So there's still more work to be done. We need to go back and revisit it. So that's why we're here. We would like to get that warrant article for the voters. And
So what is the, not to get too far at that risk, you know, you have these three main inlets. How do you mitigate those? You dig some type of retention ponds or put in filtration systems?
Well, there's potentially two ways to go. What you mentioned before, like a mechanical system, then there's one called aqua filter. But you know, it's a large precast concrete structure that has things in it that need to be maintained on an annual basis or whatever, and we think that perhaps there's, you know, been some new technology, some changes in 10 years time, and that there might be some better answers, and then one of them is a more green solution, which is like a rain garden type solution, and that wouldn't require all the maintenance. You might have to plant some new plants once in a while or something like that, but those plants would take up the nutrients and use them before they got into the lake.
So you'd have kind of like build a retention pond, that those would be planted in, so when you had an infusion, hopefully the water would set there long enough that the plants could treat it before it, and maybe it doesn't even
And
continue.
supposedly, Steve, that's about half as those solutions, those green solutions, are about half as effective as the other.
That's the filter.
Yeah.
well, that's what our study in 2008 said, but according to DES, that's not the case anymore. So,
Okay.
yeah. And so they're working with the University of New Hampshire and others to look at these green solutions, and that's what the DES is pushing us toward. They would rather see that, and as people who would have to maintain those other things, I think that would be a lot better solution. We wouldn't need a national an NPDES permit for those, which we would for the other things. So it's basically, those other structures are basically a treatment system, and they have to be permitted just like any other treatment system, and that's really a no-go. So it's really a green solution we're probably looking at.
And the warrant article would be to allow the town to go apply for the CWSRF for the amount of, I believe, up to $75,000.
Right?
And it would be it's a program where we would basically hold that debt and pay the payments. There would be some interest, but ultimately it's all going to be forgiven.
That's right.
So the goal of the Partridge Lake Association would be to get approval from the voters to incur the debt, knowing that there will be zero impact to the taxpayers. And I think from the town's perspective, our interest is that the potential to lower property values on the lake because of the persistent problem could also impact the tax rate. Partridge Lake is area has a high valuation and contributes a lot to the tax rate. So that's some of the things that we've kind of explored with it. And the funds, the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're requiring that we conduct an updated plan, and that's where this money wouldn't go to mitigation. That'd be the next step.
Right. That's correct. You're right.
Right, this would be for planning and design, and the folks at DES are really strongly encouraging this call it updating the plan, before they want to do anything with 319, Section 319 money to give us something to actually
To build
implement or build something. They want a fresh look at it.
Yeah.
So if you end up building, let's say it becomes, it's a, you're gonna build 3 lagoons for lack of a better term, maybe it's a great term, anyway. Then obviously it's a cost of building those, it's gonna be involved with people either donating land, or granting easements,
Right.
or whatever the case may be.
That's
to-
right.
to
That's
implement.
probably the most difficult part.
Yeah.
I mean, when they study it, they will probably make recommendations saying you should do this, that, or the other thing. I don't know how big these things would need to be or how much space they would take up, but once we have that information as in a design, then we'll have to go to the landowners and say, hey, look, this is what we'd like to do, you know, can we get an easement to do it, can we purchase property, you know, can we do it upstream of your property so that you don't even have to impact it?
Yeah, well, you might as well get further off.
So that's, those are complicated issues, but I think we could accomplish that. Because everyone on the lake has the same goal, they want to make sure that the water is clean and we don't have this issue anymore.
So what's the time frame then? So if this is a warrant article and it's approved by voters in March, how does,
Then the pre-application for the CWSRF,
You got it.
the pre-application happens like June or July, and then the final application in the fall,
Yeah.
and maybe by the end of the year, we would actually have it awarded, something
Yeah,
like
some kind of
that.
notification, yeah.
Yeah. And it's my understanding that the town of Littleton has some experience with the state revolving fund
Yeah.
on some other projects.
Yeah, I think we have 3 projects right now. The sub-5 sewer system, which is a $2.3 million project we're doing with CWSRF. And we're doing a study of another section of our sewer system, and we're doing a capital improvement, long-range capital improvement of our treatment, wastewater treatment. So we've used it a few times.
We think that, or Dave Ernsberger thinks that Mike Welch will be able to write the pre-application, you know, he knows enough about how to do it.
That's right, yeah, so we contract with North Country Investment Council, and what Mike Welch is, and we would work with them, either Mike or Caitlin there, or one of their other staff to get the application.
Okay, so it's $75,000 in principal. In theory, it won't ever have to be paid back, but there is an interest component for how long? For a while?
It,
I think it starts when you get the money.
our understanding is that it's 2%, but I think that needs to be verified. And, you know, the Partridge Lake Association is committing to paying whatever interest it is.
Paid from the association, or as a levy on the?
No, we have a lake quality fund that people have donated to over the years, so we've got a little bit of buffer there that we can use to pay that.
So there's plenty of money in it.
Correct, so that'll be obviously. And then, so the interest is payable until
The
the
loan
principal
is-
is actually used?
Or return.
Oh, yeah.
not
So-
necessarily used, because that's the timeline I was trying to get my head around. So whatever is used, we have to pay for, but until it's completed, we don't get the funding.
I'll have to look it up, because this program is a little bit different than the one, like I'm using one that has a potentially 12.5% loan forgiveness. And so we take out the money, we use it, and then I believe once the project is over, there's 12.5% of it is forgiven. And then I have another project where it's an amount up to $30,000. We spend funds, and then once we incorporate the actual, if we go from study to implementation, then they roll that in and they forgive the initial amount.
But we have to have
Each
the money
program
up
different.
front. That's what I was, basically you have to have the money up front, so to speak, from the taxpayers.
That's not our understanding.
Yes,
That's
we
not our
would get a loan,
understanding.
and there may be some sort of like a $0 payment type situation. We have to look at it still. Mike Welch and I are exploring it on our end. And what we will have is we'll have a draft warrant article with an explanation of all that by the time we get to the point where you're ready to vote on it.
I'm trying to make sense of all this right now.
I would say an extremely complicated program that hopefully has no.
Obviously, in regular business, the idea of borrowing money, paying interest until you spend it, and then never having to pay it back is a little bit of a challenge to use your mind around. But
the warrant article, there's no cost to taxpayer up front on the warrant article, the first year, second year,
This
third
is
year?
what we would
Ever.
do. Well, the way we would word the warrant article would be basically to get a loan, a $75,000 loan through the state clean water revolving loan fund, and then just explain the conditions and say, with no impact to taxpayers or no impact on the tax rate. And we'd probably cite the Partridge Lake Association specifically in there for interest.
So they're not gonna want to start payments right away from the taxpayers.
no payments in tax.
There's no payments up front. I mean,
No
they give you $75,000, you don't have to pay any of it back.
Right, no payments at any point in time.
Mhm.
If you use it, you're successful using it, that's it. In the worst case scenario, if you're unsuccessful, you just give the money back and you paid interest while you've been holding it. So that's phase one. So you come up with a plan. Phase two, thinking involves some type of these green solution lagoons or whatever that address the three main tributaries. And if addressing the three main tributaries then would be good enough to allow you to apply to actually remediate the lake itself. That's a thought. I'm not saying I'm not looking for commitment.
hope.
I'm just-
We're hoping.
That's right.
Yeah. You're on the right track.
That's it, okay. And how much of the problem do we think is septic systems or lack of septic systems?
That's a really, really tough number. None of the studies have any good qualitative data on how much septic system goes into lake. They have done seepage studies to see how much seepage is coming.
Yeah.
But I did a back of the envelope calculation a while back, and we have a number for how many gallons of water comes into the lake every year. It's 3.6 million gallons of water. So if you take however many camps are on that lake, and you figure there's 3 or 4 people in each one, and this is a big estimate, each one of them uses 100 gallons of water a day.
Yeah.
And all of that water ends up back in the lake. It's like 1/10 of 1% of the water coming to the lake.
They call that the swag method.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so,
But anyway, but still, we're doing it, yeah, even if,
it's got to be a small.
yeah, so the town of Littleton extending our sewer system up to Partridge Lake is not gonna be part of the solution.
I jokingly threw that out there just to get a rough estimate, and I was looking at the linear feet, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Who knows though, maybe in the future there's a discussion about a community-based septic system out there.
Well,
I think they're successful.
Part of our diagnostic study from our watershed-based plan talked about that very thing.
Mhm.
And that gives back to the same kind of issues you have with even these green solutions is, whose properties are gonna go on and
Right.
things like that. And then you get a permit and you have to discharge that into the lake. And then you've got, a NPDES permit and nobody really wants to deal with it.
And monitoring and,
Yeah, testing and all that
yeah.
goes with it. Yeah. It'd be like having
Like
a
we do.
mini super set.
that we do in
Yeah,
ours.
exactly right.
Yeah.
The in-lake solution, it seems that we're aware of two solutions. One is to broadcast aluminum salts, alum, onto the lake, and that goes down, and phosphate
Binds it up.
binds with any mineral quite easily, so it would bind with the aluminum, and it would mitigate that high phosphate concentration in the bottom for maybe 10 or 20 years, depending on how effective the external loading
Yeah.
mitigation has been. But another solution that has intrigued me is called deep lake aeration, and this was done in a reservoir in Manchester, but I haven't spoken to those people, and I haven't spoken to the vendor who provided the system, but they have compressors on land and then lines that go down to ceramic diffusers in the bottom of the lake, and it creates an overturning all the time. It's just a constant overturning, and it gets oxygenated water to the bottom, which gets rid of the sediment and helps the fish. You know, it puts oxygen in the bottom of the lake, but I'm thinking it's probably very expensive to do
And
that.
this is Lake Massabesic?
Pardon?
Lake Massabesic?
But I don't know what I just know it's a reservoir in Manchester. Yeah.
They probably have more than one, but I know that's
Yeah.
one of them. Well, maybe that's.
And this is the application instructions,
Oh.
you know.
Instructions.
I got a couple of questions. How often has your lake been shut down by the state for algae issues? There are some lakes that are shut down every single year, beaches and stuff. How often has this lake been shut down?
That's the
Well-
first time I know about, but I haven't been here for a
It
while.
has been shut down once?
Yeah, they shut it down last summer.
Last
summer,
year.
okay.
I don't know.
2017.
Okay.
2017.
I don't know if they actually said, do not swim in this lake,
Oh, they did, yeah.
but it was, you know.
There were signs, we saw
Posted
signs.
signs.
You know, saying this lake is not, don't swim in boat. and all that.
Okay. Now, 3 years ago, I tried to go fishing there. I come down off the hill and nice little beach there, and I threw my line out there. I was told very indirectly, get out of here, this is not a public lake. You cannot, public cannot use this lake.
There's
Is
no-
there a public beach or public access to
There's
that
public
lake?
access. but
There's
no
public boat
beach.
launch.
There's no public shoreline, but there is a public boat launch, yes.
A public boat launch?
Yeah, you go down the far end, Ralph, toward Lyman, and you take a left-hand turn and go straight out there.
I was also around the backside of the lake, and I was told to get out there too.
Yeah, but probably there's no
Is there a
public.
road into it?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
very good road
Yeah.
and some parking
Okay.
and,
So the residents, Littleton residents can use this lake. They can boat in it, to swim in it, fish in it, whatever they want to do.
And-
But that was my concern, when I got kicked out of there, I don't wanna go to the little 2,500 taxpayers and say, we wanna help you guys when you won't even let us use your lake. Cause I've been kicked out of there twice.
And it's the state's lake.
Yeah.
It's not our lake, it's the state, the lake belongs to the state of New Hampshire.
But there's.
Then why can't the state clean it up?
Shoreline.
Well,
So
what-
you're
This
saying-
would be their money, basically, this would
Except
be their
for
money,
what launches.
basically, the state's money.
This-
You guys
this-
are right.
but here, when, we've had 2 meetings with the DES, and when we went down there the last time, a fellow who's a senior biologist, I said at the end of the meeting, you know, whose responsibility is it really to try to, you know, take care of this problem? And this gentleman said, it's the state of New Hampshire's lake, and it's the state of New Hampshire's responsibility, but we don't have the money. So even the Section 319 funds, which is money that's available to take care of watershed issues, they get that money, the state of New Hampshire gets the money from the EPA, and the DES administers the program. They only got $460,000 for the whole state, and they already know the projects that are shovel ready for this year. They already know where that money's gonna go. 2017, they got $0. So it's a challenge, and I'm hoping that there's some foundation or trust or, you know, conservation, let's call it a trust, that wants to give us a bunch of money too.
And then one last question, these systems are gonna require maintenance. If whatever system you put in is gonna require long-term continuous maintenance, I assume, for the rest of its natural life.
It depends on which solution is chosen, and I think that everyone probably would steer away from the things that require a lot of maintenance. That's why on the tributaries, what Tom was saying about the DES really favors this green solution, that, you know, the maintenance would be maybe pulling some weeds and planting some new plants from time to time.
Okay.
But-
Because what I wouldn't wanna see is this get put in, and then the town work crews, our work crews become responsible for annual maintenance on these systems. You gotta go out there and work on it. The town work crew shouldn't be involved in those.
No,
You
not
got
at all.
you got an association out there that should be involved in it.
Well, it's also the state too. If the state owns it,
Well,
it
they-
needs to be out there too. So
But
I'm
they just
just
said the
saying.
state
I
was
know,
among
right.
that.
I
Still,
know,
somebody
right.
will have to maintain it.
Right.
I don't think our town work crew should have to do that. That should be part of the Little Lake Association.
No, I don't think that, I mean, Parker's Lake, they've had many residents out there for many years who've taken this upon themselves to do this monitoring or whatever, so I think the culture is already out there that, if this was the solution, I'm sure there'd be a resident commitment to maintain it. I can't see them building it and then walking away and say, you guys take care of it. I don't think that.
Yeah, I think that's,
I don't think there'd be any justification for the town of Littleton to have any responsibility.
because whatever comes up, whatever we do there will be on private land, so it won't be city property.
Any other questions? But thank you very much, it was very informative.
More
and-
packets,
Sure.
please. We have some members out here tonight. Thank you.
Appreciate the input.
We appreciate your time, thank you.
Nice to see you, at least it's starting to get some cohesiveness to the thought process anyway.
It's gonna be a long process.
Yeah.
We're just
Yeah.
getting started here.
I think it's gonna be easily a 5-year process.
Right, no,
All right, thanks, Sue.
there we go, thank you very much, gentlemen.
And we'll also need a copy of our application. They've already submitted an application, right?
No.
No, that was the
No,
instructions.
We'll
This
do
will be a
a
warrant article.
warrant article first, and then we'll have an application if it gets approved. But yeah, I could always show you once we're ready to submit it.
The reason that we
We
can't,
have-
So they're not submitting like a nonprofit agency, it's submitting,
Oh, right. Oh, I see what
Funds.
you're saying, right, yeah.
and the application has to be filled out up front.
Right, no, this isn't like that. This would be a town-sponsored warrant article.
it has to be town sponsored. They will give the money only to a municipality.
Yeah, so it'd be really be a town project,
Okay.
yeah, with the eligible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. We are 5 minutes from the witching hour, is there anything else we need to do or discuss?
We got 2 grants, we got another grant we received. We got a Littleton Fund grant this week for $20,000 to do a new sound system at the Opera House.
Ooh.
And we just received those 2, that we received the Land Water Conservation Fund grant for $200,000 for the Littleton Commons project. I think it's called something else now, but that's the early stages project across the river for parking and farmers market and all that sort of
That
stuff.
land has been bought yet, hasn't it?
No, that's what part of this, these grant funds would be used for that, but
Is it gonna be matching funds attached to that?
there's always matching funds, so what we do is we try to leverage other grant funds to do that.
To match it?
But that system.
It's
works
still
better
early,
than
so we have
ours.
3 years to do that.
Just like-
More to come, and, the select board actually has to vote to accept and all that sort of thing. So,
So, last year, we had, I always get this mixed up, EMS, EMT services for ambulance services, and it was going to a committee for study. And I think the timeline that we had, if I remember right, was that if we were to do anything about this, make any switches in order to it become a, I guess, a town service,
Whatever,
basically,
yeah.
whatever, that it would have to be on the ballot for this year in order to get the monies to buy
to do everything.
the, yeah. So I'm just wondering.
I'll give you a quick update on that.
Well, I don't,
Yeah.
my only, I don't necessarily want to get into it tonight, but I just know that we need a discussion on it.
Mhm.
So, just let us know when that discussion is and
It should be brief.
move forward.
Because,
Okay.
what really.
That's kind of telling.
So, after going through a little bit of it with the committee, we looked at just restructuring the committee, and then also, I'm gonna bring a proposal. I thought that the meeting would have already been scheduled, but I'll reach out to the person who's scheduling it. And what we did is we created a RFP, and we're going to put the study, out to a third party, so if there's no interested parties locally, it's just somebody's gonna come in and take a look and see what the actual costs are and pros and cons of each way, and make a recommendation to the select board about which way, in the community, which way is recommended. So we have an RFP ready. I'm gonna bring that to the EMS commission, have them vote on it and recommend whether to make any changes, send it out, and then I'll have a warrant article with some kind of an estimate of cost to do that. So.
Well, warrant article or no warrant article. I mean, but the worst case scenario, with the situation we have now with Golden
Cross, yes.
is costing us how much a year roughly?
Roughly $240,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that may end up being the best case scenario.
It may, yeah. We'll see, it may be the best case scenario. I mean, they'll weigh all that out for us, pros and cons.
Right.
So.
I just wanted to make sure that we had plenty of time to address it if we needed to have a discussion.
And I didn't set her up to ask that question.
No, it's okay.
That was all on her own.
That was all on my own.
It's a good question.
So there may actually be a committee meeting at some point in time?
There has been one soon.
Okay, guys, we're on less than day. We have 3 minutes, so we all good to go. All right, thank you very much for everybody. And, you know, as far as recoupments, new candidates, you know, please keep that all in mind. And
Normally there are 9, right? 9 members?
that's what we've done, yeah.
Up between 7 and 9
Yeah, that's
that
right.
we've been working with.
Yeah, at least 7, 9, and we
One,
did have a
two,
couple
three,
years where we
four,
actually had
6.
more than 9, where we actually had 2 alternates.
So we actually have 2, 4, 6, because Jim is on it as well, and we have 2 that can be appointed on next Monday. So we have 8, so there'd be just an opening for 1 more.
So if we end up with 8, then the question becomes, do we have 7 committee members and 1 alternate? Just so we don't end up in a,
Well, yeah, you never vote anyways.
well, not never, but seldom. Yeah, so anyway, but that's a question, so. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy.